Hey guys, welcome back. Just wanted to give you kind of a quick video. I've had several people inquire about where I stand on the Crown Vic swap into my 70 D100 two-wheel drive truck. And I have been working on this, guys. It's just been a very slow go process. We've made the cuts on this thing. We've actually compressed the frame rails in so that we have them, I think, to the width that we need. However, right now, I'm kind of at the mercy for somebody that does the welding, which I have no welding skills whatsoever. So right now, again, we've got everything cut, we've got it compressed, and we've got some tack welds in place just to kind of hold it in place for now. But again, I have been working on it, so bear with me. I'm hoping to finish this thing up in the next video segment. And I will tell you guys, right, so I promised up front that I wouldn't hide anything that we did on this thing where we made our mistakes. And when we did this, we kind of made a mistake that I was kind of horrified by at the moment, but my buddy actually, he kind of calmed me down and we thought it through and we fixed it. So we're good to go right now the way that it is. But again, we still got a long way to go. So I've made the cuts, guys, and I just kind of want to show you where I think I may have messed up. So I made these 3 cuts on each frame rail, top and bottom. And again, you'll see I've got the cuts here and the cuts here as well. And I did this on both sides. Now what I did was I think if I go back in time, I cut the driver's side first. And I cut all the tops over here, and then I cut the bottoms. And then, I don't even know if it was the same day, to be honest with you, I went back and I cut the passenger side frame rail. Now, what I think that I did, where maybe I messed up, was when I made these cuts, I cut the driver's side first, and I thought maybe I cut them too wide. And then I cut the passenger side. And I will explain to you what happened there was what we did, and me and my buddy each had our own ideas of what we did here, and I'm not blaming him for everything, anything. I think his idea would have worked as well. But we found the center line of the frame, which this slot is the center line of the radiator support cross member here. And then we found the center line in the transmission cross member back there. And we took a piece of angle iron and we just clamped it to these 2 locations, and we used that for our measuring to go from the center line to know that each rail was the equal distance from the center line, so that we had a perfect, spread on these rails. And when we started pulling this thing together, the first time we tried it, we actually tried it with the bar clamps. And the bar clamps just weren't strong enough to push this thing in. So we wound up wrapping a chain around the rails, got to come along and started pulling them in. Now my buddy was on the driver's side, I was working the passenger side, and we weren't really paying attention to each other. I was watching my gaps, he was watching his gaps to see if they started opening or closing. And what we wound up discovering kind of after the fact was the passenger side rail was barely moving, the driver's side rail moved a ton. And we actually wound up with the passenger side rail was pulled in too far, and the driver's side rail was pulled in too far. The passenger side rail had hardly moved. So essentially what we had skewed this whole frame out at an angle. You know, I'm dramatizing here, but we had skewed it at an angle. And so I got frustrated and I thought, oh my goodness, what have we done? And so again, my buddy kind of brought me down to my senses, and we heated up the driver's side rail right in this area, I think actually, maybe a couple spots. And we just kind of hammered it back out and got it. And good news is everything worked out perfect, right? That worked out perfect for us. So, that was a little alarming. And where I think I messed up, and I'm an engineer and I normally think things through too much. On my cuts, I think what I had done was I had cut into the outer radius. If you look here, I had actually cut into the outer radius more on the driver's side than I did on the passenger side. And this gives the rail strength, so you really need to cut into these to weaken this, so when you pull it together, it has that weakness that gives you that ability to straighten this thing out. So again, I made my cuts bigger on the driver's side than I did on the passenger side, and that's why they pulled together. Now, what I wanted to do, instead of clamping this in the center line, I wanted to actually tack weld it in place on the cross member for the radiator and the cross member for the transmission, then tack weld some angle iron in between that and the frame rail on one side, and just work on pulling one side of the rail in at a time. And my buddy felt that we would be okay pulling them both at the same time. And again, I think we truly would have had my cuts been consistent from left to right and top to bottom as well. So regardless, just real quick, I want to show you this. So, all right, so my buddy came up with this, and this was a great idea, right? We actually just utilized the cab mount holes in the cab supports and put a bolt on each side, the left and the right-hand side. And what we do with these is we're using these as our guide to check our squareness. So we measure from one stud, and you can do this anywhere on the rail, really, as long as it's the common spot from side to side. So I just measured to this tip right here, and we're at 70 3/8 of an inch roughly right there. So then if I check it from this side and bring it over and check the other side, hopefully we'll be right around that same mark. Bear with me just a second. So again, we're very close to 70 3/8, right? The engineering nerd in me wants it to be a little bit different, but actually, no, that's a little bit more. I may have measured wrong over there, but it is very close, right? I'm not getting it good on the tape right now because of these stiffening folds in the rails, but regardless, so that's what you want to do, is you want to have a measuring point anyways to make sure that your frame is true, that it's square, that you're not out of whack, and that you're going to wind up doglegging when you go down the road on this thing. So still a lot of work to do. What I've got, and this is where it's going to get kind of tricky. This is where I got to overthink everything. So I don't even know what you call these on the Crown Vic suspension, but I thought these kind of pivoted, and I'm sure they do with a bunch of torque on them, but I thought it would just kind of flop over flat and we would, you know, be able to mount these into the frame. However, they were actually in the Crown Vic at an angle like this, and I got the frame rails from the Crown Vic. The junkyard I bought them from, he just cut the frame completely behind here. So I have all of the frame rails. So this is the next part that I got to figure out. This is where it's going to get really tricky, because again, over here, this is one of the Crown Vic frame rails, and you can see that this, you know, this rail would have been in the car, you know, something like this. And so this was at an angle. And so I'm either going to have to cut this out of the Crown Vic rail and fabricate it into my rail, or I know there's companies out there that are making something similar to this that you can just weld in place, but I think for the strength, I like what I got here with this Crown Vic. This is a really thick frame rail, so hopefully this will work out for us. But again, that's going to be a lot of thinking and overthinking. So the original thought on this was to do this, put it under my personal truck. But I'll tell you guys right now, for what I'm doing for my truck, I'm kind of a perfectionist and I'm anal about everything. And at the end of the day, the more I work on this, the more I realize this isn't going to be the look that I'm going for personally for my truck. But what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to finish this thing up completely. I've bought another truck, another 1970, that's got great patina on it. And I'm actually going to use that truck. I'm going to take the body off of that and put it on this frame and just make it my shop truck. That thing's got some great patina. It's got a 383 in it, an automatic, so I'm just going to incorporate all that into this and make this, again, my shop truck, and, you know, something I can drive back and forth to swap meets or whatever, and just have, you know, have something to tool around town in. Go a different route on my truck because, again, I'm going for a, I guess if you would, a pro touring type truck and a show truck, something that I can drive a lot, but that is going to be a show truck that, you know, again, I just don't think for myself the Crown Vic is going to be what I'm looking for when I pop the hood on my truck. So regardless, I will promise you I'm still working on this thing. I'm just at the mercy of him right now, getting over here and helping me weld this thing. So hopefully we can tie up together here in the near future and actually start sitting this thing up underneath here, figuring out, you know, some of the last few things that we need to do to get this sat into place and start figuring out the cuts for these, again, torsion bar mounts or whatever you want to call them on this Crown Vic. I don't even know. But guys, stick with me. If you've not done so already, please like, comment, subscribe, share this, do whatever you can do to help me make my channel successful. And I thank everybody that has already subscribed to my channel to date. It's really, I'm surprised I got as many subscribers as I do already. So thank you guys very much, and look back, I'll get these things done, I promise.